Just as we begin, I want to say aloha and welcome to all of you for joining us. We will be recording this and we'll send out the slides and the recording to you all to watch in case you want to go over any parts of it later. And if you have questions as we're presenting, feel free to put questions in the chat. And we will open it up for a Q&A later on. So if you also want to just save your questions then, or just do them as we go and put them in the chat, we'll have people kind of making comments and answering questions. So thank you all for joining us, and I will introduce our guest speakers who we're so lucky to have join us tonight. But I will pass it to Gabby to do an opening welcome.
Mahalo, Stuart. We'll start today with the Aloha Spirit. The Aloha Spirit is the coordination of mind and heart within each person. It is the working philosophy of Native Hawaiians and was presented as a gift to the people of Hawaii. Aloha means mutual regard and affection and extends warmth and caring with no obligation in return. Aloha Spirit, Chapter 5 of the Hawaii Revised Statutes.
Mahalo, and that's always a good way to begin, to remind ourselves that, we are here to share, to learn from each other, and to respect each other, especially when it comes to such a, pardon the pun, a crappy issue like cesspools. So you will have to forgive me. There will be a number of puns throughout. It comes with the territory. So I want to introduce you to the WAI team. We are an educational nonprofit, which I'll tell you more about. My name is Stuart Coleman, and I'm the executive director and co-founder, along with the managing director, John Anner. And tonight we also have Christina Comfort, who's our water quality specialist, who's getting her PhD at UH. We have Gabby, who is our program and manager and instructor, along with Courtney Kerr. Gabby's on Oahu and Courtney's on the Big Island. And then we have our new project manager, Chris McKay. He's on Maui. And our new operations coordinator, Aaliyah Smigel, who goes back and forth and is currently in her hometown of Hilo, but lives in Honolulu. And Michelle Lee, our marketing specialist, is on the East Coast right now, so she won't be able to join us. So as we go to the next slide, just to give you a little quick overview about what we're doing, we also want to welcome our local legislators and old friends. Rep. Nicole Lowen I've known for years and years, and she's been like just an outspoken leader, and she was on the Cesspool Conversion Working Group with me for 4 years, and she's really taken leadership on this issue. So we appreciate her joining us, along with Rep. Kirstin Kahaloa and Rep. Jeanné Kapela, and they will say a few words. And then we'll also have returning panel experts, Dr. Stephen Colbert and Dr. Tracy Wiegner, who will present some slides regarding water quality, and they are experts in this field. And we'll be here to answer questions. But first, I thought we'd start with a few kind of introductions from our panelists who have taken times out of their busy schedule with the legislative season just beginning to come and talk with us. So maybe we'll start with Rep. Lowen.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Hi, Stuart. Just first, thank you to WAI for putting this together, organizing it, and kind of letting us just show up. Really appreciate that. As Stuart said, I've worked on this issue for a long time. Well, first of all, I represent District 7. So District 7 runs from like the middle of Kailua town all the way up through North Kona and all the way up just sort of right to the edge of Waikoloa, and then continues along the coastline all the way up to Spencer Beach Park. So it includes all the coastal properties and the, where the resorts are, et cetera. And I also chair the Committee on Energy and Environmental Protection and have worked on this issue for a long time. So it's a really important issue. Big Island has the most cesspools of any island in the state. Those cesspools, especially depending where they are, cause a lot of pollution that can affect drinking water and especially can be harmful to the reefs, which are facing a lot of challenges. And that doesn't help. And, at the same time, so we understand the need to convert them and to clean those up. At the same time, I think we also understand that it can be really costly and that we need to figure out ways, to work with the county and work with homeowners to figure out how to help offset those costs and make this transition process feasible and as painless as possible. And I'm lucky to have such great partners in my colleagues, Rep Kahaloa and Rep Kapela, and also with WAI and all the people who work on this issue at their organization. So thanks again.
Mahalo, thank you. And next we'll have, because she's got a 10-week-old and who's a little sick, we'll go to Rep Kapela to say a few words. Mahalo for joining us.
Thank you so much, Stuart, and thank you to WAI for having me as well. It really is a privilege to be here, and I'm so glad that you folks are doing this series of town halls across the state to really showcase how constituents can benefit from different things that are coming up and also the different pieces of legislation that are moving. I do also want to give a big shout out and thank you to Chair Nicole Lowen. She really has been such a champion for this issue in the state legislature. I had the privilege of representing South Kona all the way to Kea'au. My district recently shifted, and I'm so grateful that we have Rep Kahaloa to come in and take that portion of Kona that I used to have. But my district really is the whole southern half of the island. According to the tiers of cesspool conversion, most of my district now is in tier 3. But like many of you here, I defer to the experts. So I'm excited to get to learn a little bit more as well from today's esteemed panel. And just very excited to be here. And thank you again to WAI. I may jump off early. I have a 10-week-old and we're both really sick. But again, just very grateful to be here. Thanks again.
Thank you again for joining us, especially with a 10-week-old. That is heroic. Thanks again. And then finally, we'll go to Rep Kahaloa. Thank you for joining us.
For having us, WAI. I appreciate you hosting this conversation. It's, as we have all mentioned, super important for our communities across the state, but especially on Hawaiʻi Island and especially in West Hawai'i. So thank you for hosting us. I'm Kirstin Kahaloa, the newest member of the Kona delegation team. This is my first term, but second session and year in office. I represent District 6 in Kona between Representative Lowen and Representative Kapela. And that runs from about half of Kailua Village all the way down to Honau now. And I have the Makai half of the district of Mamalahoa Highway. When we go from basically Kealake, oh my God, Konawaina High School all the way to Honau now. It is 6:30, so we're getting a little jumbled with our words. Just happy to serve under Rep Kapela, oh my God, tired. Rep Lowen's leadership as chair of the Energy and Environmental Protection Committee. I serve on her committee, and she is the expert for the House in this space. And so our goal is really to support her in these efforts and be part of the collaborative effort to pass more legislation to ensure that we're able to convert our cesspools in West Hawai'i and across the state in a meaningful manner and meet our timeline. So happy to be here and happy to support these efforts and conversations. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure, and thank you. And we do appreciate, because we know you're having long days prepping for session right now. So and joining us after hours. So it's deeply appreciated. All right, and just to tell you a little bit about WAI, as you all know, WAI is the Hawaiian word for water, and that's kind of at the heart of what we do. It also stands for Wastewater Alternatives and Innovations. And our mission is to protect water quality. And we do that by really targeting sewage pollution and trying to restore our watersheds, because, you know, up until 10 years ago, and Ted Bolin is on this call, who's a board member and a former deputy attorney general, he got me into this this field. And when I realized that there were 83,000 cesspools, I just couldn't believe it. And so we are that organization that has really tried to step in and help homeowners, the counties, and communities really manage what is a very difficult situation of converting all these cesspools, trying to come up with areas of reuse. And we do this through 5 kind of pillars that we have, programs: outreach and education, with this, which this is part of, as our town hall meeting. And we also are trying to introduce innovative technology to the state that is currently not available here. You know, it might be available across the country and around the world, but it hasn't come here. So we've been really glad to introduce some successful innovative technologies to Hawaii and really prove their concept, you know, do proof of concept and showing that they work through various pilot projects across Hawaii. And then we work with our legislators, like are here tonight, to produce, you know, bills and do policy and advocacy work to really help us with this situation, but also to access financial resources through the federal government and through all kinds of foundations to really help homeowners, counties, and communities with this effort. We can go to the next slide. So tonight, just to give you an overview, what we'll cover, we'll go over the cesspool issue and impacts. We'll talk about some of the legislation that's been passed and where we are now legislatively and where we're going. And then we'll talk about the priority areas that were mentioned earlier that were determined in the Cesspool Conversion Working Group. Then we'll talk about technologies that could help with those conversions and be more efficient and more affordable. And we'll talk about sources of financial assistance, potential ones, and our Work for Water program, which is our workforce development program, which has become very successful and kind of nationally known. And then we'll have our panelist Q&A, and we'll be done by 8 o'clock, if not sooner. All right, I'll turn it back to Gabby.
Mahalo, Stuart. We would like to take a brief poll to help us better understand your needs. Please select the answer that best represents you. There will be some multiple choice questions where we will ask you to rank how much you agree or disagree with each of the statements on a scale of strongly disagree to strongly agree. And before I launch the poll, please remember to scroll down to see all of the questions. If you happen to be on a phone or a tablet or another device, you may need to rotate the screen to be horizontal. If you have any questions or setbacks, please let us know in the chat. And remember to return to the poll by selecting the More option. And I will launch the poll.
And you can use your touchpad or the screen itself to move down. And these are important for us to get these results because we need them for grant reporting, but also more importantly, just to get a real sense of where people are with these issues. So we try to get, 80% participation. So if you could start, jumping in there, that would be great, Mahalo. And feel free to put any questions if you're having problems in the chat that we can answer. But this gives us a good survey of where people are and their outlook towards cesspools in Hawaii.
We're at 78%, so we'll give everybody another minute here. If you did select other, if you wouldn't mind either putting in the chat, or you could directly message Stuart or myself or anyone to just let us know how you found out about this. That would be extremely helpful for us, because we want to make sure we're reaching everybody that can participate when we have town halls like this. Mahalo for sharing. If you selected other, letting us know where. Ooh, next door, awesome. Okay. Last 30 seconds. Please get your votes in.
Mhm.
All right, mahalo. If you weren't able to get to the poll, you can always submit your answers in the chat. Okay. We'd like to start our town hall by answering the question, why now? Why is it important to convert your cesspool now? First, we'll play a short video that goes into detail about how cesspools work and the impact that they have on the environment and our public health. So this section will be the Hawaii cesspool issue and impacts. Please give me a thumbs up if you can hear the audio okay.
Cesspool construction was recently banned in Hawaii. But what is a cesspool and what problems do they cause? A cesspool is basically a covered hole in the ground. It is sometimes lined with brick or concrete. Open joints in the lining allow liquid and solid waste to seep through. Cesspools are designed to dispose of waste, but not to treat it. If you have a cesspool, when you flush your toilet, use your kitchen sink, take a shower, or do laundry, untreated wastewater and gray water is directed into this hole underground. Human waste moves away from the cesspool through Hawaii's porous lava rock. Eventually, it reaches the water underground and contaminates it with dangerous pathogens and household chemicals. Because we live on islands, everything is interconnected. We rely on underground aquifers for our drinking water. Water from these aquifers is also connected to the ocean through a process called submarine groundwater discharge. When pollution from cesspools travels in water underground, it impairs our drinking water sources and negatively impacts our ocean ecosystems. Human waste contains viruses and bacteria that can make us sick if we consume water contaminated with them. Our waste naturally contains nutrients like nitrogen that can wreak havoc on coral reefs by causing algal blooms. The medications we take and personal care products we use can also negatively impact Hawaii's plants and animals. Hawaii has over 83,000 cesspools that contribute an estimated 52 million gallons of raw sewage into our environment every day. Because of these impacts, cesspools are required to be replaced with more effective forms of wastewater treatment by 2050. To continue to protect our health, that of our loved ones, and of our environment, cesspools need to be upgraded as soon as possible. For more information on cesspools in your neighborhood, visit hawaiicesspooltool.org. This video was produced by the Hawaii Department of Health, University of Hawaii Sea Grant College Program, and the Water Resources Research Center at the University of Hawaii.
Wastewater pollution risks. Wastewater can negatively impact human health and by transmitting waterborne pathogens, including pathogenic bacteria, viruses, and parasites. These microorganisms can cause diseases when individuals ingest or come into contact with contaminated water. Swimmers, surfers, fishers, and paddlers report illnesses and infections from swimming in polluted waters from all across the islands. Wastewater pollution can have a detrimental environmental impacts, particularly on coral reefs. Sewage pollution introduces pathogens to coral reefs, increasing the risk of coral diseases. Pathogens like bacteria, viruses, and parasites can infect corals, leading to tissue damage, reduced fitness, and death. Wastewater contributes to the increase of excess nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus in fresh and saltwater bodies. Excess nutrient pollution in water creates harmful algal blooms, kills coral reefs, and strips oxygen from the water due to the excessive nutrient input of nitrogen. We're lucky to have our water quality experts here today who can share more about this in your specific area. Nature Journal Research Report. A research study recently published in Nature Scientific Journal in 2023 explains how wastewater pollution and herbivore management are the most important factors in the West Hawai'i reef resilience. The study investigates how increasing land-based sources of pollution and decreasing herbivore fish populations are two of the biggest stressors on the survival of Hawaii's reefs, especially during and after coral bleaching events. You can click on the picture right here or on this link down below to access this full study on Nature magazine or Nature Journal. So what are the differences between cesspools and septic tanks? Both of these systems are located on site, on the property where the waste is collected. So everything that goes down the drain, every drop from your shower and flush of toilet flows through the inlet pipes and is conveyed into these systems. In terms of treatment, cesspools are pretty much as basic as it gets. They're typically a hole in the ground that's lined either with stone or cement. These cesspools do not have the ability to filter the waste, which means that the sewage will eventually contaminate the surrounding soil. This is why cesspools are generally considered outdated and why Hawaii is looking to convert these systems. In contrast, a septic tank is a watertight container that holds wastewater and allows it to separate into layers. With solids sinking to the bottom, you can see down here the sludge, and liquids rising up to the top. That's the scum up top here. The liquid layer then flows out of the tanks and into the drain field for further treatment. Septic tanks are designed to treat wastewater and reduce the risk of pollution, but they can also be a source of environmental contamination if they're not properly maintained. Pass it over to Stuart.
Thank you, Gabby. And I'm going to talk about legislative bills that we passed in the past. That's a mouthful right there. And things we're working on now. So we can move to the next slide. And I will stick on this slide for 1 second. Going back, I use this as my backdrop just to remind people that it's a kind of a funny image that cesspools on near the coast are like toilets on the beach. So that was an actual PSA that we did and put some toilets on the beach, and just to remind people in a light and humorous way that this is a very serious issue. And so that's something that we need to be kind of aware of. So back in 2016, we passed the first of a number of really important bills that kind of changed how we looked at cesspools. Act 120 was in 2016, and that banned the construction of new cesspools. And Hawaii was the last state to do that by 3.5 decades. So it's really important to remember, sometimes there's resistance among people like, why do we have to do this? We're the only and the last state that allowed this for 3.5 decades because it is a major environmental and health hazard. Then the following year, we passed Act 125, which mandated the upgrade of all cesspools by 2050. And in 2018, we passed Act 132, the creation of the Cesspool Conversion Working Group. And like I said, Representative Lowen and Ted Bolin and about 15 others of us were on that committee for 4 years volunteering. And we passed a number of bills last year, which I'll go to the next slide and tell you about. We passed a pilot program providing reimbursable $20,000 grants for low and moderate income homeowners. That became Act 153, and demand was so high for that when they released the applications for these grants, all $5 million was just completely gone in 3 days. So it made it very clear that, you know, there are a lot of homeowners that want to do the right thing and just need a little bit of encouragement and financial support. And then we passed another bill kind of updating the technology, allowing for more efficient and modern systems. And then HB 2088 was creating a bill allowing commercial property owners to finance their large capacity cesspools through property assessment. And then there's another bill, a similar bill this year that we're going to be doing for residences. That's for large capacity cesspools, and that's into the purview of the EPA. All others, small capacity cesspools, anything under 1,000 gallons a day or 5 bedrooms, is under the purview of the Department of Health Wastewater branch. So we have a number of bills, and I won't go into too much detail about each of them, but if you have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. The most important ones are the majority leader, Rep. Nakamura, has been working with us and many stakeholders for months and months. And she put forth a bill, HB 2743, requiring the counties to do wastewater plans and authorizing them to charge cesspool fees to fund grants and loans for those who can't afford them. And that's a really important bill where, you know, cesspool owners are the only ones that are not having to pay, where everybody else is either on sewer fees or spending the money to upgrade their systems. And so the great thing is that those fees will be small starting off and will be collected in a fund to help homeowners with the cost of conversion. And then the second, HB 1892 and its companion, are requiring priority area 2 cesspools be converted by 2035 and 2040 respectively. So that's priority 1 and 2 cesspools. And what we're doing there is we're making the dates earlier because all the science has just really made clear that our coral reefs cannot stand that much with global warming and hotspots, ocean acidification, and all the threats from marine pollution, sedimentation. Our coral reefs are under a lot of stress, so we need to protect them along with our just drinking water and water quality in general. And so also practically, we won't be able to convert 83,000 cesspools unless we have earlier deadlines for the most serious areas in priority 1 and 2 where we know there's contamination of our water quality and nearshore ecosystems. And then HB 1898 and its companion SB 2360, that was a unanimous, most of these were kind of unanimous recommendations from the Cesspool Conversion Working Group, but the Department of Health right now does not have the staff to manage all these conversions. So that's probably one of the most important things, is that we need to create more staff positions so that they can help homeowners with the conversion process and also be applying for federal grants to assist homeowners as well with financial resources. And there's bills for outreach and education to help folks understand the issues. And then HB 2066 is on-bill financing, and that's administered by the Hawaii Green Infrastructure Authority at DBED, the department that would help homeowners finance these conversions. And finally, we have one requiring denitrifying capacity for individual wastewater systems. Rep. Lowen introduced that because it's the nitrogen from the wastewater, from these cesspools and injection wells, that is also the greatest threat to our coral reefs.
Hi, this is Christina Comfort. I'm the water quality specialist with WAI, and I'm just going to briefly walk you all through the cesspool conversion priority areas on Hawaiʻi Island and specifically on West Hawaii. Next slide, please. Thank you. So on Hawaiʻi Island, there are about 48,000 cesspools. So this is the most amount of cesspools in the state, 60% of them. So that contributes a large amount to the effluent discharge. On Hawaiʻi Island, there are all the cesspools have been classified by the UH data prioritization report, which the link just got dropped in the chat to check out that data prioritization tool online. You can see a screenshot from that tool here. So there are 4 higher priority areas that have been identified by the UH data prioritization project. So you can see those listed on this slide, with red being priority level 1 and orange being priority level 2. Yellow is priority level 3, but I also just want to point out that it doesn't mean that it's not a hazard. It just means that priority level 2 and priority 1 were ranked higher in the study. Next slide, please. So our first priority area, we'll look up at the north end of the west side here. So this priority area encompasses about 2,000 cesspools and is ranked as a priority level 1, which is the highest risk of contamination. As you can see, most of the cesspools, the red dots in this map, are located very close to the coast. And additionally, the substrate in this part of the island is fractured lava rock, and wastewater effluent can make its way very quickly from a cesspool or a septic system out onto the reef. Next slide, please. The second, or actually this shows 2 priority areas because they run up right against each other. On the north, you see the Kealakehe area, and then the south part of that map, the Kailua Kona area. So this area has about 3,600 cesspools and is ranked from priority level 1 to priority level 2. So you can see that these cesspools are really densely packed together. So that's one of the main factors driving this high ranking here, is that they're really densely packed cesspools. That's a lot of wastewater entering the system all in one location. It's also close to the coast, and like many areas on West Hawaii, you have that fractured lava rock, quick transport from groundwater to the ocean. And the last priority area that we're going to be looking at on West Hawaii is the Keaho area. So this is a priority level 2 with about 700 cesspools. You can see the orange dots are generally set a little bit further back from the coastline, which is probably why this came out as a priority 2 rather than a priority 1. There's still a high density of cesspools. It's still really close to a lot of really important ecological resources, coral reefs, areas that people like to use the ocean. So on the next slide, we can see some important contact information. So everyone who signed up for this presentation will be able to get a copy of these slides, and you can see all the contact information for all your representatives in all of these different areas, priority areas. So that's a good resource for later. Next, I'm going to hand it over to our 2 guest scientists on the call, Dr. Stephen Colbert and Dr. Tracy Wiegner, to talk about their research in this region of Hawaii.
Hi there, my name's Steve Colbert, and I'm here with Tracy Wiegner. We're from the Marine Science Department at the University of Hawaii at Hilo. And we'll be presenting some results today from our graduate student, Ihilani Kamau, who's done a lot of the field work and analysis here. Thank you so much to WAI for putting this on, and for our legislators for being here today. We really appreciate your support with dealing with this serious issue of sewage contamination in the nearshore waters along Kailua Kona. So we've been doing this study of this in this region. You can go on to the next slide. And it all starts with some background information. this region, as we've just saw, it has some of the highest densities of cesspools on Hawaiʻi Island. That sewage is likely impacting our coral reefs, contributing to this presence of coral disease, the second highest occurrence of coral disease. The first highest being up at Puako, where we also notice a sewage issue. Looking over time, there's been a decrease in corals in Kailua Bay that's been proposed to be a result of coral bleaching. That's then increased because of, it's increased because of the coral bleaching. Back then, this was before coral bleaching, so probably due to poor water quality. In 2020, we saw this increase in fecal indicator bacteria in Kailua Bay, incredibly high values of Enterococcus there, and these blooms of algae, like you can see in the bottom picture here, this streak of algae growing out there, which we shouldn't be seeing in our clear coral reef waters. Next slide, please. In 2021, a statewide survey was done of shorelines all around 33 different shorelines around the state. 10 different shorelines around Hawaii were measured. One of those stretches was about a mile below the Holualoa area. As we saw, there's lots of cesspools in that, a dense packing of cesspools in that area. As a result, that shoreline had some of the second highest most indicators of sewage in their nearshore waters. And so the statewide report labeled this as a wastewater dominant site. Compared across the state, the Holualoa region by itself ranked 12th most polluted in terms of with wastewater presence. So we really have an issue here. And we wanted to see more broadly, this was just focused on that 1 mile of shoreline, what was happening more broadly. Next slide, please. So with our study, we sampled 12 stations. This project began as a collaboration with Kohala Center, Viola, County of Hawaii, and there's two big parts to the project. First of all is looking at the impact of sea level rise on sewage infrastructure. But then also we were identifying these hotspots of sewage pollution along the shoreline. We identified 12 stations, 5 up in the north or near Kailua Bay, 3 in the Holualoa area, 3 in the Kahalu'u Bay, and then 1 all the way down at Keauhou. Identifying sewage, because there's so many different components to sewage, we use several different indicators to identify it. We look at nutrient concentrations, nitrogen species in seaweed. And today I'll talk about some of the fecal indicator bacteria that we've been looking at. Next slide, please. So some preliminary results that we found is this presence of Enterococcus, which is this fecal indicator bacteria. At 9 of the 12 stations, at most of the stations, we measured at least one time where the concentrations of Enterococcus were greater than 140. Now, that number is important because that's a Department of Health standard. If Department of Health goes out and measures that value, that's when they post the signs saying that there's a contamination issue, and they repeat sampling until the concentration is decreased. So we observed that at 9 out of 12 of these stations. 7 out of 12 of these stations had average concentrations greater than 35. That 35 value, if you go swimming in water that's that high, then there's a 3.5% chance of getting a gastroenteritis, some kind of stomach virus, some ailment from being in that kind of water. So these are places that have this persistent presence of this fecal indicator bacteria. Two of these, one of these is all the way up at the north end in Hulihe'e Beach. In Kailua Town, we know people are using that beach to go to the bathroom. There's Royal Kona Hotel and Banyans that had high values. And Kahalu'u was really high at all 3 of the springs that we measured there. It makes me frustrated with the priority levels when we see this site that had very high values and Keaho, but they're ranked as priority 2 sites. So our next step is to do tide tracer tests in this area and then make a direct connection between homes and their cesspools and these springs at the shoreline. Thank you. I look forward to answering questions later on.
Mahalo. I really appreciate that, Steve. And we share your frustration. The cesspool conversion tool, the link was posted in chat earlier in the chat. It goes by census tracts, which is larger. It didn't go down to the block level. And so within areas that look like, oh, it's just priority 2 or priority 3, there are priority 1 cesspools there. So, I think we need a little more accurate information, more testing, like Steve and Tracy are doing, to really show people like how high the levels are, not only for the health, not only for our environment, but if tourism is our bottom line in the state, and if people start getting sick when they're going to our beaches, that could really devastate the economy as well. So right now we're going to talk about different technologies that we've helped bring to the state and that are available, that we find are just filling in gaps and much better than a lot of existing technology. We can go to the next slide. There we go. So, septic systems do very minimal treatment. On the mainland, they are going to be more sufficient if there is, 20 feet of healthy soils, because what leach fields do is there's, a septic tank that gets it. Gabby showed that slide. The solids settle to the bottom, the fats, oils, and greases go to the top, and the rest goes out into a leach field. Now, in a healthy leach field where you have, many feet of healthy soils, the microbes in the soil help treat that. Here in Hawaii, we have lots of clay soils, which are very hard to go through, and they don't have that same percolation, healthy percolation soil and level of microbes, or we have fractured volcanic rock, and it just goes way too fast, and there's not enough microbes in the soil to treat it. So we're trying to, bring forward more options that take care of reducing nitrogen and chemicals of emerging concern, reducing pollution to our groundwater and surface waters and our drinking water, which is very important because some of these do affect our drinking water, and better quality effluent, and better treatment can allow for reduced leach field size. So that means there's cost savings for homeowners. And so that's always something that we have in mind, trying to bring down the cost for homeowners. And some of these examples, Christina has put some in the chat, but aerobic treatment units, most of those require a little bit of, a pump and a little bit of electricity. But we also introduce nature-based systems that don't require that. We can go back. Oh yeah, we're going to talk about them here. So some of those are aerobic treatment units, as we mentioned. And these have aerators that introduce oxygen. And that helps with the, producing more healthy bacteria to treat and increase the microorganisms to break down the organic matter. And so this is like a septic tank, except it's much, much more enhanced. It's like a mini treatment, municipal treatment system. So you're going to get much better treatment. We can go to the next slide. And here are some other options that we helped introduce. This is a picture in Hawaii Paradise Park where we converted a cesspool. And in Hawaii Paradise Park, just to remind you how important this issue is, it's the largest collection of cesspools in the state. And they sampled private drinking water wells in the area, and 50% of them, 50, showed fecal indicator bacteria. So that's how relevant it is. It's in the drinking water. So this is something that we have to be really wary of because it can cause all kind of harmful effects. And what this does is it has a higher level of treatment in the leach field by creating surface area and these modules where the healthy bacteria can break down and form a biomat to really start breaking down the contaminants. And in some cases, it can reduce a leach field size by up to 40% with these geotextile sand filter systems. But they require a certain type of sand that helps with that denitrification process. And so that's something that we need to work with in each county to make sure that quarries are producing that, because for this case that we did on the Big Island, we had to ship over the sand from Oahu. That is completely unnecessary. The Big Island has those quarries. We can do it. They're just not aware of how important this is, because a lot of these systems are going to have to use this C33 sand. And then we did, that was a veteran on the Big Island, and this is a veteran-owned company. And so they donated the system to them, which is great. And go to the next one. And then we have, trying to kind of replicate what an aerobic treatment unit does, but with passive nature-based systems. We worked with a nonprofit from the East Coast to create what's called a bioreactor garden. And this goes in between the septic tank and the leach field and uses plants and that sand that I was talking about and biochar to reduce the contaminants dramatically. And the results proved that it's passive, it doesn't require a pump, and they decreased the nitrogen levels by 88%. That's some of the best results in the country. So we were very excited to do this. And we're now working on a grant to look at the communities of Hana, Anahola, and Keaukaha. So we're going to be working with Rep Kahaloa to try to find funding for communities in that area that are rural and have high populations of low income and Native Hawaiians. Let me go to the next slide. This is one of our newest partners that we introduced. And this is also a plant-based model, and it does what's called phytoremediation, using plants to help with the treatment. And most people wouldn't even realize that this is a treatment system. It's so well designed and aesthetically pleasing that people just think, oh, it's part of the decoration. And so these are kind of ways that we're thinking outside the box. And everything in a house is either considered gray water or black water. Your toilets are all black water, but surprisingly, your kitchen sink and dishwasher are also considered black water because food particles and waste can get in there, and that can create all kinds of problems. Everything else, the showers, sinks, and washing machines are considered gray water. So this helps treat that gray water, and they just got a big EPA grant to also see if they can connect treat the kitchen sink black water. So that will be the goal moving forward. And this is state of the art, being done, only here and 2 other states. So we are kind of on the cutting edge of some things. Alternative toilets within the house, there are kind of 2 basic options. One are composting toilets, which have been around for a long time and, have definite advantages, but the Department of Health doesn't like people handling their own waste and their smells, and you have to dispose of that waste. And so they can't be used for agriculture or in your garden. So they definitely tend to kind of move away from that. We introduced these incineration toilets, which makes you pause for a second. Those are 2 words that don't seem to belong together, almost like an oxymoron. Incineration toilet. It's a water-free toilet with a metal lining basin that drops out, and there's a heating device in the bottom. So this can just replace a toilet, and the only thing it needs is, you can see that pipe going out the back. It needs air for ventilation. But we introduced this to Hawaii and the Western United States, and now there are over 60 of them across Hawaii. So they've been very successful. They're approved by Department of Health. They've got National Sanitation Foundation approval, but they will increase the utility costs each month just because they can come in either a gas model. That one in the picture is at Coconut Island at the Hawaii Institute of Marine Biology. That was our first test site. And so that can use propane, or it can be, if it's in the home in an area that's on grid, then you can use electricity. And then we're also trying to introduce community scale wastewater systems that are also known as cluster or decentralized systems or package systems. Now, this is where the future lies. You know, this can be done between, we have 20 and 200 homes, but it can be done up to 1,000 homes. We really believe in this because trying to convert one cesspool at a time, 83,000 of them across the state, is going to be nearly impossible. So if we can go to an area like Hawaii Paradise Park or Maui Meadows, or areas where you have a lot of them together, we could convert all of them at once and use a sewer type system, except it's got small diameter piping. And then you can reuse the wastewater. You can use it for irrigation and for fire prevention. And so we're working with a company called Orinco that does this Prelos pressurized liquid only sewer model. And we're working in like 3 potential areas to do that. Right now, just to answer that question really quickly in the chat, is gray water use allowed by the state DOH for surface irrigation? Right now, it is not. We are trying to push them so that it can be, especially when you have monitored systems like Leapfrog and others that can prove the water quality is safe. But right now, it needs to be subsurface. And then this is something that is kind of a game changer. The reason why municipal plants are so expensive is because they're so big. One, they have to treat, you know, millions of gallons a day, but also because they're underground and you have to have sewer systems that convey them long distance, miles and miles, and you're treating huge ones. In small rural communities, those aren't really needed and really aren't going to be feasible at all because they're too expensive for these smaller communities. So if we can combine a system like the Orinco Prelos system that can do conveyance, and it takes, you know, has a tank in the yard, but then no leach field. So everything's pumped to a facility or to an existing manhole or sewer system, then you could treat it. And then what we want to do is use companies like Cloacina that can do packaged treatment plants. And what this means is they would ship it in a container and it's already pre-engineered for that site. And so instead of spending tens and sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars to bury these systems and do all the underground pipes, big gravity sewer lines that are sometimes 3 feet wide, here you could just put out a concrete pad and put this treatment system that was designed for that particular area. So you can imagine the cost savings. And so this is going to be kind of the future where we can do these systems in a decentralized way and save homeowners in those areas a lot of money, but also do it more, you know, in a more efficiently and use that water for other uses, like I said, for irrigation, fire prevention, creating and irrigating fire breaks and green belts. So we'll do the next slide. And then I'll pass it to Gabby.
Hello, Stuart. Our next section is all about financial assistance. WAI is seeking funding sources to help homeowners with the process of converting their cesspools and failing septic systems. We're working with the EPA, the Department of Health, USDA's Rural Development Office, and private foundations to bring together federal, state, and philanthropic funding to help homeowners. Because cesspools can have a negative environmental impact, the United States Department of Agriculture recognizes this issue and offers financial assistance through grants and loans for these conversions. The Water and Waste Disposal Loan and Grant Program supports the development of water and waste disposal systems in rural areas. This program can provide funding for planning, construction, and improvement of cesspool conversion projects. Typically, the funding comes in the form of loans, and these low interest loans typically have an interest rate between 1% and 3% annually. The area you see shaded on the map in orange is not considered a rural area or eligible for these programs. To be eligible for a Section 504 loan and or grant, the applicant must live in a rural area and meet certain eligibility requirements. If you're interested in finding out more about this funding option, you can visit the link within the slide, or you can reach out to us and we can help you with the application process. So as you can see here on this map, everywhere except for Hilo Town, unfortunately, is eligible for these grants and loans. You have this link here as well, and remember to please contact us if there's anything we can help you with. As Stuart mentioned at the beginning of this town hall, in March of last year, the Department of Health launched a cesspool pilot grant program to assist low and moderate income property owners with converting, upgrading, or connecting cesspools to a more environmentally appropriate method of managing and treating wastewater. Each grant recipient was eligible to receive up to $20,000 in reimbursements for their cesspool conversion or connection costs incurred. The grant program had a total of $5 million that was allocated on a first-come, first-served basis, and all of the money was allocated in under 2 weeks of launching the program. Due to the limited amount of applicants that can take part in the pilot program and the long wait list, the DOH is no longer receiving applications for the grant program, but this overwhelming amount of interest in the grant program demonstrates the need for more financial assistance to help homeowners. WAI hopes that the legislature will fund the program again in this next session. And that brings us to our ASB opportunity, our free cesspool conversion, what we call three for free. We encourage you to go to the link right down here, tinyurl.com/WAI apply. We also have a button on our website, waicleanwater.org, and we will be sharing all of this information, including a link in a follow-up email. Please go to this tinyurl.com/WAI apply to submit your application. This application is submitted to WAI only to determine the eligibility for consideration, and it's not an agreement. With the support of American Savings Bank, WAI is working to offer 3 free cesspool conversions for low and moderate income homeowners on Hawaiʻi Island, specifically in your area. Why should you convert? Including all of the reasons we've shared so far, all cesspools must be converted by 2050 as mandated by Act 125, and each cesspool conversion is worth up to $40,000, adding that value to your home. So our qualifications for this program: you must be located on Hawaiʻi Island, and you must demonstrate a financial need that you cannot afford a cesspool conversion. So please feel free to go ahead and go to this application and share your information. As a reminder, we will reach out to you if you're selected, and then we'll enter into a separate cesspool conversion agreement. The application is non-binding. It's just to share your information and see if you're eligible. As a reminder, all of these slides, the recording of this town hall, and this link will be sent in a follow-up email to the email address that you used to register for this event on Eventbrite. We'll also include a link to this application.
And I'll just mention one thing very briefly. No, that's right. It's we do have a deadline. We've extended it already. So if you are interested in that program, just if you can let us know and fill out that application by Thursday, that would be great. Okay.
That takes us to our last section, which is all about the Work for Water program before our Q&A with our panelists. So we're excited to announce our new Work for Water program, which offers a unique opportunity for workforce development on Hawaiʻi Island. It is a free program aimed at inspiring individuals to join the wastewater industry. The goal of the program is to address the critical technician workforce shortage required to replace all 83,000 cesspools with individual wastewater systems by 2050, as mandated by the Hawaii State Legislature Act 125. And with clean water and wastewater management services on the rise, there's no better time to join the wastewater management industry. This program is funded by the Department of Labor, and we have partnered with the University of Hawaii, Hawaii Community College in Hilo, and the University of Hawaii Maui College. Work for Water program is an entry-level wastewater introductory course covering wastewater management and the career options available in Hawaii. It is an 8-week hybrid course. That means it's in person and online. That takes And there are 3 separate cohorts of learning, both on Maui Island and Hawaiʻi Island, specifically at Hawaiʻi Community College in Hilo. The program is off to a fantastic start. We just celebrated a successful first cohort that ended in November in 2023, and we are in the middle of cohort 2 right now. And that will end at the end of February this year. Cohort 3 will take place in the fall of 2024. Topics for this program include wastewater pollution and impacts, wastewater science, Hawaii cesspool problems and policies, wastewater treatment technology, wastewater disposal technology and innovative alternatives, much like the ones we just reviewed, and wastewater industry career preparedness. There are many benefits of participating in the program. This program will equip participants with the foundational knowledge and skills needed to enter or advance in the wastewater industry workforce. By participating in this program, participants will take the first step in pursuing a career in the wastewater industry. These positions offer competitive salaries and a stable and rewarding career path. The program will provide resources and support for individual career pathways into the wastewater management fields, including design, installation, inspection, operations, and maintenance. Another one of the many benefits of participating in this program is the opportunity to network and connect with potential employers. The final unit of the course explores a variety of professional roles with decentralized wastewater industry pathways, and students pursue to advance within the industry. Each student will chart a course that includes future education, on-the-job training, apprenticeships, or immediate employment with a 5-year plan, and we help with resume support as well. This course also provides opportunity for students to develop connections with the industry partners and culminates in a networking career expo event where students connect with field experts and employers. Our upcoming networking event at Hawaiʻi Community College is on Monday, February 26th. If you are interested in participating as a potential employer, please contact us and let us know. We would love to talk with you and partner with you. And then again, at the end of last final benefits here, at the end of the course, each participant earns an industry recognized certificate of completion and a $500 stipend. One of the most important and my favorite benefit of this program is the positive community impact made by protecting Hawaii's natural resources. Before we move on to our Q&A session, we'd like to take one last brief poll. All questions will be multiple choice, so please select the answer that best represents you. Similar to the pre-poll questions, there will be 3 multiple choice questions where we'll ask you to rank on how much you disagree or agree with each of the statements. And each statement will ask you to rank how much your awareness has increased after attending this meeting. Finally, please keep in mind there's also a Q&A, so you will have an opportunity right now to ask panelists and your representatives more questions. There will be one last question at the end to gauge your interest in the Work for Water program. If you or someone you know is interested, please select one of the yes options. And there's an optional fill in the blank question where we kindly ask you to please share the best form of contact. That can be email or phone number so we can share more information with you at the meeting, whether you're interested in participating as a student or as a potential employer. Please contact us and let us know. Remember, you might need to rotate your screen to answer all of the questions, and you can come back to the chat to ask any questions or any setbacks you have, and you can return by selecting the More button. So we'll give everybody a moment here to answer.
Thank you, Gabby.
My pleasure.
And we're able to put on these town halls usually through grants, almost always through grants. And so this kind of reporting that you're doing right now really helps us to make sure we can continue doing these across the state and working with legislators to educate people about the options. And if there's anything that you think about later and wasn't asked, feel free to follow up with us, and we can work with you all.
While we're still taking the poll, I just want to bring your attention to this last slide where you're able to scan this QR code to apply for the free cesspool conversion that we mentioned earlier. And there is that URL at the bottom, tinyurl.com/VAI-apply. A reminder that you will receive this entire slide deck and a recording and these links in a follow-up email to the contact that you shared with us to register for this event.
We'll give everybody another minute or two. We're at 68%.
Little did you guys know you were getting a crash course in cesspools tonight. Everything you ever wanted or didn't want to know about wastewater. But it's something that, we've ignored for a long time. And yet it's one of the most, it's a measurement of a society, how well it takes care of its waste, along with food, water, and protection and order, like how you treat your waste is a huge statement about how healthy a society is. So with so much riding on Hawaii's environment, just culturally and environmentally and health-wise, and then economically, it's just something that we're overdue to take care of. And so we appreciate you learning more about it and working with us on this.
Okay, last couple of seconds to submit. All right. Mahalo nui loa for your time and participation tonight. Next, we'll start our Q&A. So please drop your questions in the chat and we'll turn it over to our panelists.
Yeah. Do you, if Tracy or Stephen, if you have any kind of opening words that you want to mention after hearing some of these presentations, or we can start going through the chat and answering questions. And that's also for our representatives if they want to say anything right off the open the comments.
I see a comment in the chat that came it came directly to me, so to the whole group, from Mark Hackney, which is the water sampling data for the Kailua Kona to Keauhou area available, including the sampling locations and the times? It's a question for our water quality experts.
Yeah, our graduate student is right now working up that data, and Ihilani is hoping to have that all put together for her thesis and have that available this summer.
And we have shared we've shared all of the data we've collected at Kahaluu with them. And we're happy to share it with any particular groups along the shoreline. So we're probably about like 3/4 of the way done with the project and hoping to wrap it up by the end of the spring and then write it up and share the results. But we've been meeting, we met with the county at the beginning of January to kind of talk to them about what we found so far.
Great, thank you, Tracy. And we're lucky to have both of you working so hard on this issue and getting really cutting edge science and the data we need to make these decisions.
We've also had a couple questions come through the chat asking about the county involvement. Do we still have any of the county reps on the line?
Yes.
I know some people were sick and things.
We have Rep Lowen and Rep
Okay, great. Yeah, so some folks are asking about what's the county's role in trying to figure out what are the best solutions for these neighborhoods, and how is the county working with WAI and with the state to find the best solutions?
All right, should I jump in?
Yeah.
I mean, Rep Kahaloa and Rep Kapela and I are at the state, so we're not the county, but obviously it has to be a combined effort. I think the county right now, I think someone mentioned in comments, is working on like an integrated wastewater plan countywide to look at, where it makes sense to expand sewer infrastructure and what the plans are about wastewater treatment improvements that are needed, et cetera. And then I think you know, we're continuing to have ongoing conversations with the county about how we can kind of jointly have skin in the game on some of these programs to assist homeowners directly with funding. So I think the responsibility falls on both.
And I know that the county, they hired a consulting agency to come up with a master cesspool conversion plan. And they have 2 meetings coming up. I think the one for West Hawaii, February 13th, if I remember correctly, down at the old Kona Airport.
Yeah, I think they're going to have a couple, and that's the first one.
Yeah, that's the first one for West Hawaii.
Yeah, I mean, for details on that, we'd have to ask someone from the county. I don't know the answer, and I don't know if anyone is here from the county.
Yeah,
I can share the slides that they gave at a presentation. It was at the most recent Environmental Management Council. They had the preliminary dates for 4 different areas on Hawaiʻi Island.
Yeah, I've seen that.
yeah, I was just going to add that I think it's important to start to go to those county community conversations. And, you know, if you look at the maps, infrastructure wasn't put into some of our communities where it was in others. And so, you know, there needs to be some skin in the game with the county to help with this. And, you know, Chair Lowen has done a lot to help us with that conversion at the state level, but we need some coordination, collaboration, and a little more support with wastewater from the county. And so how we ask as a community in West Hawaii, our mayor and our county leadership to support us in those efforts, I think is going to be really critical.
Great, thank you. And Adrian just put in the chat a link that shows some of those meeting dates. Thank you for sharing that. And just to echo one of those, you know, some of the sentiments there is that, you know, it really, when people go, well, who's responsible for this? That we should do this. It really is going to have to be all of us. You know, it has to be the state. It has to be the county. Community leaders we've seen really stepping up to take ownership of their own, you know, when they're trying to do decentralized plants, especially in light of what happened in Lahaina. We've seen communities really saying, hey, we don't want to waste our wastewater. And if we can use it to create beautiful green belts that also serve as fire breaks, wind breaks, and sediment breaks, and it protects the environment and places to, you know, potentially walk, why wouldn't we do that? So yeah, that's why it's important that all of you are on this call. It's like it's a communal effort. And the more people get involved, the better. Someone asked, how does a community itself become proactive? It's a really good question. And I can defer to you all, but one way is, you know, reaching out to us. We're working with communities across the state, and then also reaching out to your representatives and county council members who, you know, are 3 years ago, 5 years ago, they might not have been aware of this. Almost everyone is becoming hyper aware of this issue because it's so important and there are so many bills going forth. Does anybody else want to offer advice about how to get involved?
I mean, we have a hearing coming up at the legislature. I know that's one way. That is, Stuart probably knows offhand, that is Tuesday, February 13th. And I'm sure Vi could provide information about submitting testimony on bills and things like that. But that's when we're hearing a whole bunch of cesspool bills all at once that morning.
Yeah, thank you. And if you email, I'll put it in the chat, info@ycleanwater.org. We also have a cesspool legislative task force that meets every 2 weeks on Tuesdays at 2 o'clock. And we talk about the bills that are being heard, and we can send you updates of when the hearings are, bullet points to submit, and they're representing communities across Hawaii. So that's another option for folks. Please let us know if you're interested.
There's a question in the chat. There's a lot of questions. I've been trying to answer as many as I can typing, but there's also a lot popping in. I see one coming through now about, how can a community look for funding if they, there's a community. I just lost the chat, but someone says their HOA has a large unused rec area. Would there be any funding to convert to a community system? So can anyone share a little bit about the process of looking for funding for neighborhood scale wastewater systems?
I can jump in there, and if anybody else wants to join, that is a great question. That HOAs. So there was something earlier in the chat to create a sewer improvement district or a special improvement district, SID. It goes under different names. You need a portion of the population to say, yes, this is something we want to do. Instead of converting 700 individual cesspools, we'd like to do this. The great thing about an HOA is they already have the legal right to do that. So you're way ahead of a lot of other communities, and they can start a process, and we can help with that to create a communal system. And, there are grants available out there to help get funding. And so it's an opportunity right now that we have. There's been more federal investment in wastewater issues in the last 4 years than there has been in the last 40. It is a huge amount. And so we would be foolish to leave that money on the table. There is a lot of opportunity, and we're trying to encourage the state and the counties to work together to get this money. Some of it's, low interest loans, but some of them are forgivable loans. That's free money. And some of them are grants. So yeah, if you're interested, please let us know, Theo. We'd definitely be glad to work with you.
If anybody has a question that wants to say it out loud too, you can always raise your hand.
All right, Bruce.
So my question is, and I put it in the chat, but nobody answered it, is why Waikoloa Village is bundled in with the coast. I mean, we're considerably far inland than, Waikoloa Beach resorts or Puakau or any of the beach communities that are obviously seriously affected by cesspools and whatnot. And we also have a tremendous amount of individual homes and properties, part of the village association, that we could conceivably benefit from a community plan. But my first question is, why are we in priority 1 versus priority 2 when you compare that to the Kona area, where the Mauka areas tend to be priority 2 and we're in priority 1? I don't understand.
I can talk a little bit about. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Christina.
Sorry, let's start talking at the same time. Okay, so I can talk a little bit about how the priority areas were decided. And so the reason that Waikoloa Village is grouped in with those other areas are because of census tract borders. So the data prioritization tool is basically based on census tracts. So that means all cesspools that are existing in the same census tract, each individual cesspool gets a score based on about 14 different factors, and that includes, soil type, distance from the coast, elevation, rainfall, coral reef resilience or recovery potential, those kind of things. And all of the cesspools that are in a census tract were all averaged together to get your priority ranking. So that's why an area that's really, it's really far from the coast could be ranked higher, because there's the weight of all of the cesspools in that census tract that are close to the coast. So just for the methods, I hope that maybe makes it a little more clear how that works.
Gabby, did you want
to? But if you're,
Tracy?
Gabby, you can go ahead.
Sure. No, I did post just in the chat a little bit more info, just exactly what Christina was saying, how there's 15 statewide data layers with relevance to cesspool hazards that were overlain with the cesspool locations in a code-based geospatial tool. So with the expert input, these risk factors were weighed according to their significance of the environmental and human health impacts. So being close to the coast was just one of those factors. And the 3 zones indicate the level of conversion priority. So priority 1, those cesspools have the greatest potential to impact human health and the environment, and they are directly adjacent to sensitive natural resources like coral reefs or drinking water aquifers. And that's what you saw in that color red there. I'll also post in the chat the link to UH Grant, which has their whole website, has a great explanation. There's a short 3-minute video that goes into the 15 different factors and helps really explain how these priority areas were determined. There's also a great report where you can look exactly at all of the different factors and details, and you can even access the tool from that website right there. Again, all of these links will be included in the slide deck that you'll receive in a follow-up email.
And I'd also like to add that we have done work going from Waikoloa Village down to Pu'uko, collecting groundwater samples. And so we see there's an increasing influence once you start going down the slope towards Pu'uko. We start seeing sewage coming from Waikoloa Village and then coming in at Pu'uko. And so it's a cumulative. The highest influence we see is at Pu'uko, but we do see it coming down from Waikoloa Village to the shoreline as well.
Yeah, thank you. And it's a good question, Bruce. And I think the good thing is that when you said, there's room to do, a local plant there, with the fires in Waikoloa and the ongoing threat, I think it would be a great idea, because you could use that treated wastewater for fire prevention. And this is a situation that's only going to get worse, not better. So let us know if you want to follow up on that and talk to it, and we could maybe even present to your board.
Well, I definitely think it's something that should be done. Stephanie Stearns is on this as well on this call. She is someone who's very active in the community with the seniors. So that is, she's a good contact point for that. But someone should really also get in touch with the Waikoloa Village Association.
Also, there is a private wastewater treatment plant in Waikoloa Village too. So a portion of the community is connected to that. And then there's another portion that is on cesspool. So what the county has been talking is trying to figure out these private public relationships. So if there's an existing plant, how can they hook up people that aren't part of that immediate community, that private community? So they're trying to figure that out. I know that that's been a conversation for Kahaluu and possibly Pu'uko as well.
Yeah.
A comment?
Thank you. Oh, yeah.
I live also in Waikoloa Village, and I also am part of their FireWise team, and I'm also a FireWise community ambassador. And it would be interesting to have the information about how some of those solutions could also add water that could be used for fire prevention, because that might be something that our local committee would be interested in looking into and or presenting to our HOA. So
Great.
how would we go about that?
If you can email us at info@ficleanwater.org, and we'll put it again in the chat, that would be great. We would love to talk with you all about that. All right, well, we're running almost out of time. Are there any burning last minute questions that we haven't answered yet? All right, well, thank you all so much. It's amazing. We had over almost 80 people attending tonight off and on, and really want to give a shout out again to our representatives, Rep. Nicole Lowen and Kirstin Kahaloa, for joining us tonight. And Rep. Kapela had to run because she and her child were sick. But this is not the one and done kind of thing. This is an ongoing conversation. So if there are questions, if there are ideas that you have, we really encourage you to contact us so that we can keep this going and figure out long-term practical solutions for these areas. Rep Lowen or Rep Kahaloa, any final parting comments?
Just thank you to you and your team and all the presenters for taking the time and the work that you do to educate everyone. And we'll keep working together. It's a big issue. It's going to take time.
Oh.
Thank you as well. And like Chair Lowen said before, there's lots of bills related to cesspools this year. Please show up, please, and testify. You don't have to be there in person. You can do it virtually or just submit written testimony. But if you're passionate about this, please, we'd love to have your voice be amplified and see your testimony when it comes in. So thank you, everyone.
Yep. And, you know, we do have a system that we should be proud of because we were one of the first, if not the first in the country. I just put it in the chat. It's capital.hawaii.gov. And it was one of the first online systems in the country that can track all the bills. You can reach out and find out who your legislators are and submit testimony online. And sometimes it literally can take as little as 5 to 10 minutes just to say, log in and say, I support this bill, and just say who you are and where you're from and why you support it. It can be that simple, and it can make a profound difference. I want to thank all of you for joining. I want to thank our speakers, Tracy and Steve, our representatives, and the WAI team. We have an amazing team, and they really are doing great work. We survive on donations and coupons. That's what keeps us going. And the notion that we are doing something good for the environment and the people of Hawaii. So we really appreciate you all joining, and we look to staying in touch and keeping the dialogue going. All right. Aloha.
Mahalo.
Thank you, everyone. Aloha.
Aloha.
Would someone also make sure that the chat is included in what is sent out to the people on the call?
Yeah, we track that as well. Yeah.
Thank you.